The Imperial region of space known as the Fenris System is home to the Space Wolves chapter of Space Marines. This star system is located on the fringe of both the Segmentum Obscurus and Segmentum Solar. The Space Wolves have proudly watched over this realm and hundreds of other worlds in the surrounding stellar region since the close of the Horus Heresy. The Fenris system itself is comprised of 3 worlds, Midgardia, Frostheim and Fenris, all of which share a long elliptical orbit around the Wolf's Eye, the system's star. The harsh, cold world of Fenris serves as the chapter's homeworld and the primary recruiting ground of the Space Wolves. Due to its proximity to the warp rift known as the Eye of Terror, Fenris serves as one of the primary bulwarks of the Imperium's defense against the forces of chaos. The Space Wolves maintain a watchful vigilance over its skies, as the threat of a chaos invasion is forever looming. As a region of significant importance to the Imperium, the Fenris system is well protected with powerful static defense systems, including large orbital weapon arrays and 2 Ramillies-class star forts. The defences have proved so effective that only 3 times in the past 10,000 years has the Fenris system faced invasion by a force with enough strength to potentially succeed. The first of which was the Thousand Suns Traitor Legion in year 742 of Millennium 32 during the First Battle of the Fang. The second was the forces of the apostate Cardinal Bucharus during the Plague of Unbelief. The third was in year 933 of Millennium 41 in what would come to be known as the Battle of Midgardia. Unlike the other planets and moons of the Fenris system, which are mostly dark, barren ice worlds, Midgardia is a warm and verdant death world, sprawling with areas of dense, highly toxic jungle. The lethal gases emitted from various species of flora has forced the local population deep underground. Any venture to the surface is wrought with peril on this green death world. The uncharacteristic warmth is not a naturally occurring feature, however, for at the heart of Midgardia resides the Catan shard of Nyadra'zatha, imprisoned deep beneath the world's crust. This all-powerful artifact radiates an enormous amount of energy that warms the planet's core, enough to provide the ideal climate to sustain Midgardia's vast but highly toxic jungles. The Battle of Midgardia began when a large Necron fleet, commanded by Trazyn the Infinite, arrived in the Fenris system over the world of Midgardia. The Necrons were in search of the hidden Catan shard of Nyadra'zatha, the Burning One. Logan Grimnar and his great company of Space Wolves were stationed on a neighbouring planet of Fenris at the time, and quickly responded to the Necrons' incursion. As Grimnar's fleet set course towards Midgardia, the Necrons had already begun their landing protocols. Their initial target was a colossal planetary defense cannon called the Emperor's Judgment, whose incredible firepower was preventing the larger tomb ships from moving into lower orbit. After making planetfall, hundreds of flayed ones surged forwards to massacre the Nova Cannon's ground crew. Having silenced the firepower from the Emperor's Judgment, hundreds of monoliths began their descent to assault Midgardia's magma gates, a cluster of high fortresses that guarded the opening to the lower city complex. The planetary defense forces stationed on Midgardia fought valiantly, but as Trazyn's personal tomb ship moved into range and opened fire with its particle whip, the remaining defenders were annihilated. In just a few hours, Trazyn's invasion force had overwhelmed and broken through the magma gates, and the Necrons began to push deeper into the underworld below the surface. The situation was desperate, but just as the battle seemed lost, Grimnar's fleet arrived at Midgardia from the skies above. Realizing the immediate threat, the Necrons launched teleportation assaults and boarded the Voidwolf, Grimnar's flagship vessel, in an attempt to disrupt the Space Wolves' command structure. The Space Wolves fought back the soulless machines fiercely, with Grimnar himself leading the counteroffensive. After repelling the boarding actions, Logan ordered the bulk of his fleet to attack the Necron forces concentrated around the magma gates, while he and his elite champions headed to retake and secure the fallen Nova Cannon, knowing this was his best chance to destroy Trazyn's tomb ship. Grimnar and his chosen warriors, including Arjak Rockfist and his Wolfguard, made their descent in Thunderhawk gunships and drop pods, and upon reaching the surface, made their way into the bunker complex below the magma gates. The entrance to the command center of the Emperor's Judgment was lightly defended, and so the Space Wolves wasted little time in slaying the Necron forces who looked to be guarding it. But just as the sector seemed clear, the wolves were ambushed by Necron flayed ones who were lying in wait. The menacing skeletal forms started tearing into the Space Marines with their razor-sharp flayer claws. Blood spattered the walls of the command center as more and more of Grimnar's warriors were cut down. Realizing they needed to create a choke point to repel the overwhelming number of Necron forces, Grimnar ordered a retreat to the rear tunnel complex. This forced the Necrons to funnel through a narrow corridor in pursuit, making them much easier to deal with. This strategy proved successful, and together, Logan and Arjak led a counter-attack and smashed through the remaining Necron horrors, securing the command bunker. As the battle for the command center was taking place, Volkbad Wolftongue, a member of the Wolfguard, took a squad of Terminators to the cannon's reactor core in an attempt to bring the reactor back online. The way was not easy, for they had also fallen into an ambush, but this time by Canoptech Wraiths, deadly metallic constructs that can phase in and out of dimensions using arcane Necron technology. The experienced Wolfguard fought well, losing only one of their number to a Wraith, materializing its tendrils inside their Terminator armor. After a vicious battle, the Wraiths eventually withdrew, and Volkbad was able to activate the emergency protocols to bring the Nova Cannon's reactor back online. With the power restored, Grimnar called down his Iron Priests who began work preparing the Emperor's Judgment. The Nova Cannon soon opened fire, inflicting heavy damage to the tomb ship still looming over the skies above. Faced with the prospect of such a daunting weapon, the tomb ship and the rest of the Necron fleet were forced to withdraw into higher orbit. Ulrich the Slayer and his forces at the Magma Gates were successful in clearing out the Necron invaders, but there was no sign of their leader, Trazyn the Infinite. Ulrich knew something was wrong, and suspected the battle was only a front for a much darker purpose. Trazyn, in fact, had made his way deep below the surface and was fast approaching the chamber that held the Catan Shard. Fortunately, long-range scanners had detected these Necron movements. With the help of Gnarl's Stormcaller, Ulrich led a force of Wolfguard through a warp portal to counter-attack the Necron advance. When they emerged from the swirling tear in real space, they found themselves stood atop the smouldering mountain of Infernus Peak, miles beneath the surface of Midgardia, facing down Trazyn and his Lich Guard. The Space Wolves charged the Necron Overlord to put an end to his invasion once and for all. Little knowing to Ulrich and his Wolfguard, the Battle of Infernus Peak was but a distraction. Elsewhere, Trazyn's forces had already uncovered the Catan Shard of the Burning One and had prepared to activate its containment systems. Ulrich knew they would stand little chance against such a creature should it be released, and ordered a retreat. Trazyn had finally claimed the artifact he had been searching for, but the radioactive interference on Midgardia was disrupting his phasing technology, preventing him from teleporting to his ship. He instead chose to garrison his remaining forces around a valley near Midgardia's jungles. Grimnar was still coordinating attacks on the remaining clusters of Necron resistance when Ulrich informed him of Trazyn's plans. Knowing he must act soon to decide the battle, Grimnar launched an armoured assault on the valley, while Stormfang and Stormwolf gunships brought down reinforcements. The Space Wolves hit the Necrons with immense force, driving them back to a gigantic pyramid-like structure, pulsing with dark energy in the distance. Grimnar and his champions followed the retreating Necrons inside the mysterious structure, fighting for every inch against the warriors and creatures of living metal. After reaching the central chamber, they encountered Trazyn and his cryptex constructing a mysterious device, a particle conveyor that would allow them to bypass the atmospheric interference and teleport off-world. The Space Wolves had to act swiftly, as they could not allow the Necron Overlord to escape. Trazyn himself seemed unconcerned, trusting his Lich Guard to protect him while he continued working on his conveyor. Although they fought fiercely, the Space Wolves were too late. They were unable to stop its completion, and Trazyn teleported back to his tomb ship, withdrawing from the system with the Catan Shard firmly in hand.